My name is Patrick Myers. I'm a psychologist. I work with the BCPA, the British Columbia Psychological Association, and February is Psychology Month. And among the many things that the BC Psychological Association does is during Psychology Month, we have a whole pile of free talks. So we invite you to go check out the BCPA website or Eventbrite for a whole pile of free presentations. We have a bunch of topics, including animal therapy, trauma, emotional regulation, caregiver stress, childhood anxiety, imposter syndrome, mindfulness meditation, psychologically safe workplaces, and helping others deal with COVID stress and other stressors. Just wanted to note what Alejandra said is that when you are asking a question, if you do not want your face recorded, please leave your camera off. If you want to turn your camera on though, and you don't mind it being recorded, then that's fine too. All right, and last but not least, I also want to mention the fact that the BCPA also has a referral directory. So if you know somebody who is experiencing mental health issues and might require the services of a psychologist, then you have down at the bottom, you have the psychologist.bc.ca, that's our website, and you also have the phone number for the referral line. All righty. Okay, let's go to the next one. It's not going. There it goes. All right, so welcome to our presentation entitled The Happiness Trap. We hope that we're going to inform you, entertain you, and perhaps even provoke you. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. So we're going to talk about happiness and associated concepts. We're going to talk about the costs of striving for happiness. And we're going to talk about the F.E.A.R model of creating unhappiness. We're going to talk about the D.A.R.E model of increasing happiness. And then we finish off with the magical bus ride. And just a little quote before I turn it over to my partner, Helen Fisher, and you will know her from Match.com. She's a big anthropologist, studies love and all that kind of stuff. And she says, we weren't built to be happy. We were built to reproduce. All right, let's go to the next one. There we go.
Hello, my name is Teresa Molineaux. I am an intern. And tonight, some of the ideas presented have come from a wonderful book called The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. The book is based on the principles of acceptance and commitment therapy, otherwise known as ACT. But it's not just happiness that we're talking about tonight. We're also talking about the comfortable trap, the easy trap, the F.E.A.R traps. Either we are happy or we are not. Instead, we are angry, anxious, depressed, ashamed, and the list goes on. And if I'm not happy, therefore, there must be something wrong with me or with others. We have a mic on there. There we go. To paraphrase the Buddhists, in life, pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. World Health Organization says that depression is the leading contributor to the global burden of disease. The Public Health Agency of Canada suggests that 7.9 to 8.6 of Canadians will experience a major depression in their lifetime. And this leads to approximately 4,000 suicides per year. They also suggest that 12% of Canadians will experience an anxiety disorder, such as generalized anxiety disorder or a phobia or OCD, a social anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder in any 1 year. The female to male ratio is 2 to 1 for depression and anxiety. Men, in turn, engage in more substance abuse and completed suicides. The Kaiser Foundation Health Tracker, an American organization, found that 53% of the respondents reported COVID-19 related stress negatively impacted their health. And that's actually from this January up, improved from last year. we're more than 53%. The numbers just keep rising, and everyone is ready for COVID to be over.
And unfortunately, the suffering continues at work. So I cannot remember the survey that this came from, but the survey basically points out that 26% of adult Americans report being on the verge of a serious nervous breakdown. A whole pile of us end the day with some kind of pain, or we have troubles sleeping because of work-related stressors. I love this little quote. 40% of workers describe their workplace as most like a real-life survivor program. Gary and Ruth Namey, they point out that approximately 50% of workers have experienced some form of workplace harassment. So what is the cost of all this suffering? Well, approximately 10% of Canadians in the workforce between the ages of 18 and 54 will suffer from a mental health issue each year. And this costs the Canadian economy $51 billion a year in lost productivity. And now I get on my little soapbox and I say, imagine what 51 million could buy us, huh? It could buy us some good healthcare programs. It could buy us some really cheap daycare programs for the kids. It could help us do all kinds of things, increase access to psychological services. 51 billion, it's a lot. So here's a little bit of a fun clip here. Dear God, please let that paperclip be strong enough. Now there's anxiety. All right. So then we ask, well, are drugs the answer? Well, back in the late 80s and the early 90s, oh yeah, they seem to be the new revolution with Prozac and Xanax and all these kinds of things. You can see here, Prozac, the breakthrough drug for depression. Xanax makes me a better mom. And off we went reading these magazine articles, and off we went off to our doctors asking for medications. And then what happens is pharmaceutical profits skyrocket. But the question is, do these pills make us any happier? Do these medications even work? Well, it was very gutsy of Newsweek back in 2010 to publish the research that had been coming out. And basically they said antidepressants don't work very well. And as my mentor once said, as he said, pills don't teach skills. That's where we come in. Now, I take a slightly more cautious approach to that. I suggest that Prozac can be a wonderful adjunct, or any of the antidepressants can be a wonderful adjunct. When Prozac first came, Prozac was one of the first ones out on the market. When it first came out on the market, it was designated to be an adjunct to psychotherapy. So it was 18 months of treatment on a medication plus psychotherapy. That then went to 2 years. Then it went to 2 years, drop the psychotherapy, just the pills. Then it went to 5 years, just the pills. And then it went to, you're going to be stuck on these for the rest of your life. However, you know, we're finding that the medications are not quite as effective as we would like them to be. So for example, a few years ago, the British Medical Association decided that antidepressant medication should be the second line of defense for depression. And instead, the first line of defense was a self-help cognitive behavior therapy book and exercise. So what we find is that antidepressants and brief structured forms of psychotherapy are effective for about 60 to 80% of those people who are affected. However, unfortunately, only about 10 to 25% of those affected receive such treatments. Now, what prevents that from happening is social stigma and lack of resources. Now, I'm going to be talking more about lack of resources towards the end of this talk, but we are going to continue on with our next part.
Walt Kelly's charming alter ego, Pogo, said it best. An agnostic is someone who doesn't know. Die is the Greek prefix meaning two. So diagnostic means someone who doesn't know twice as much as an agnostic doesn't know. You are the consumer. Make a balanced and informed choice. Back to the trap, the happiness trap, we have 4 happiness traps: the fusion with thoughts, the excessive expectations, A, the avoidance of discomfort, and R, being removed from the true self. In fusion, humans have the capability of constructing words that convey physical experience, projecting their thoughts in space and time, constructing delightful and terrifying stories, constructing elaborate constructions. Consequently, humans have the capability of,
The ability of, just read there.
fusing these capabilities into an elaborate and terrifying experience disconnected from reality. That's what I was looking for. Put the screen share on there. What if I can't afford college? What if there's a war? What if I can't find a job? What if I end up in a cartoon? And what if the cartoon isn't funny?
Oh my God.
E is for excessive expectations. A large affordable house in Vancouver, along with several trips to exotic locations every year. Children that are well behaved. A husband that is both manly and sensitive at the same time. A wife who is a tramp in the bed. And a lady outside the bedroom, friends who think that you are the life of the party. A workplace that appreciates your hard work and treats you fairly. A job that is stimulating and pays really well. A clean environment and a sports car. Fame, fortune, good looks, and a tight tummy. We have a little fellow who's already starting. I'll participate in show and tell. If I retain the movie and book rights.
All right, and the A stands for the avoidance of discomfort. So this is what I call the anxiety discomfort curve. And what you will see is you see the normal curve here, it goes up, our anxiety goes up, or our discomfort, it goes up, and then it comes back down again. All right, but a lot of people don't like that feeling of anxiety. They don't like the feeling of anger. They don't like the feeling of depression or of guilt or whatever the emotion, the negative emotion might be. And so to avoid this discomfort, you see these curly cues that go backwards. And this is what I call compensatory or avoidance behaviors. The problem, as you can see with these little curlicues, is they get bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually they become the problem and not the initial anxiety in the first place. Now, why do we engage in these avoidance behaviors? And that is because discomfort gets really, really bad. Oh my God, my chest is starting to get really tight. Oh my God, my heart is racing. Oh my God. And we start following this dotted line straight up and off the page. And we get to a point where we start thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack. Or, oh my God, my head is going to explode. Or, oh my God, a meteorite is going to crash onto this planet and destroy all life as we know it. I don't know if anybody saw the Netflix series, Don't Look Up. So instead, what we want people to do, or what we try to get people to do, is we try to get them to ride out, and I'll talk more about that later, to ride out that anxiety. And so you can see what we want them to do is follow the normal curve that goes there, rather than going backwards and imagining the worst. All right, let's see what else we got. R stands removed from values. I get a lot of people coming into my room who don't know what their life goals are, don't know what they, what their priorities in life are. They don't know what's meaningful for them, those kinds of things. So who are you? What do you value in life? What do you want to be when you grow up? And those values, those are choices. What are the things that you will do to follow that value? And what are the things that you won't do to make sure that you achieve that value? So removed from values is the R in fear. And then we have Mr. Albert Einstein, who he has this wonderful little definition. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and each time expecting a different result, each time hoping that the other person will treat them better, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the definition of insanity. And what else we got? D.A.R.E.
So what does Harris offer as an antidote to fear? He offers D.A.R.E. The diffusion techniques, A for accept discomfort, R for creating realistic goals, and E for embrace life. To give a quick demonstration of diffusion technique, I'd like you to all sit for just a moment comfortably and think of milk. Milk. We're going to do this together. So in your mind, I want you to think about what milk looks like, what color it is, how it flows, what it smells like, what it feels like, its texture, its temperature. Now imagine the first time you ever tried it. And repeat the word aloud if you wish, just in your own mind. They're all on mute. For 1 minute. Milk. Milk. Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk. Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk.
Milk. Milk.
Maybe just a little faster.
Milk. 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 Milk.
Sing it.
Milk. 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 Milk.
Milk.
I think we should keep our day jobs. Milk. 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 Milk.
Milk. Milk. Now, what happened to all your earlier associations with milk? When you're thinking about the same thing in different ways, you'll find that it affects you. I know one of the things that I was thinking of as we were going through that was the time we took the grandchildren to the water buffalo milk farm. And the youngest one, 18 months old at the time, got one of those little samples of this milk, and he was not sharing it with the older two siblings. First time I ever saw him do a boundaries. Me, this is my milk, and it was delicious. So the way I was thinking about it at the beginning was very different than the way I was thinking about it when I started thinking about him, or even as I start looking at this cat, licking out of the bottle. Cat. The A for acceptance does not mean giving up or admitting defeat or just gritting your teeth. Instead, acceptance means taking what is offered, living with what is. If you are breathing, thinking, and feeling, then congratulations, you're alive. You have the opportunity to change something, to change yourself, change the other person, the situation. Remember, the Buddhists say that discomfort is inevitable. You can't stop the waves of discomfort, but you can learn how to surf. All your emotions and sensations are there for a reason. Don't avoid them, accept them, and get curious. Do you want to do the 5 grounding exercises?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that we can do when we find ourselves not focusing or feeling overwhelmed by emotions is just pausing for a moment and recognizing 5 things. You can do that right now with us as well. Take a look around. What do you see? You see the green palm trees. You see the water. You see the computer screen in front of you. Maybe you see another person in the room or a picture on the wall. What do you smell? Can you name 4 things that you can smell right now? Can you smell some of what was at dinner time? Can you smell? Oh, I have a dog, and certainly sometimes you can smell her. What else can you smell? But take a look around and think, see what you're smelling in that moment. 2 things that you can hear, and maybe 1 thing that you can taste. And then go back to the discomfort when it's just a little bit less, when it's just a little bit. Don't avoid it completely. Just take a break from it and head back. Want to set realistic goals, not dead person goals. That is, goals that only a dead person can accomplish. Not to eat so much, stop smoking. What will you do differently when you stop smoking or when you cut down on your eating? Break the goals down into small, easily achievable chunks and reward yourself when you accomplish them. Journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. Or you can take a look at SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific. Make the goal really specific. Make it M, SMART, for measurable. Make it A, achievable. Make it R, realistic. And be sure that your goals are timely. As this fellow says to his partner, we'll never be able to eat it all before it spoils. How about a rabbit or something instead? Charles Sykes in 1994 wrote The 11 Rules of Life. It was followed up by books Dumbing Down Our Kids and the 50 Rules That Kids Won't Learn in School. Bill Gates was given credit for the 11 rules in a speech to high school students in 2000, and he changed the wage from 40,000 to 60K. I've taken the liberty to mildly update some of these unrealistic expectations, but life is not fair. Get used to it. The world won't care about your self-esteem. The world will expect you to accomplish something before you get to feel good about yourself. You will not make 100,000 a year right out of high school, and you may even have to wear something that doesn't have a fancy label on it. As Calvin says to his dad, why can't I stay up late? You guys can. It's not fair. Dad reminds him, the world isn't fair, Dad. Calvin? Calvin mutters to himself, I know, but why isn't it ever unfair in my favor? If you mess up, it's not your parents' fault. So don't whine about your mistakes. Learn from them. You will make mistakes. Learn from them. Before you were born, your parents weren't as boring as they are now. They got that way from paying your bills, cleaning your clothes, listening to you talk about how cool you are. So before you saved the rainforest from parasites of the parents' generation, try delousing your own closet in your own room. Of course, one of my favorite conferences that I've never been to, adult children of normal parents. Both of them look fairly happy. Life is not divided into semesters. You don't get summers off, and very few employers are interested in helping you find yourself. You get to do that on your own time. Television is not real life. Your problems will not be solved in 30 minutes, minus the time for commercials. In real life, people actually have to leave the coffee shop and go to jobs. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, these are not real life either. I don't have.
Yes, you do. Just read it.
Your school may not have done away with winners and losers, but life may have done away with, but life has not. Flipping burgers is not beneath your dignity. Your grandparents had a different word for flipping burgers. They called it opportunity. If you think your teacher is tough, wait until you get a boss. Be nice to nerds. Chances are you'll end up working for one someday. My company doesn't discriminate on the basis of religion. Worshipping me is totally voluntary.
All right. Now the question is why are we showing this dartboard here? Anybody ever play the game of darts? Well, here's an interesting way of thinking differently about this. All right. What is the object of the game of darts? The object of the game of darts is to hit that little tiny red dot right in the very middle of that dartboard. And when you hit that dot, what happens? Oh my goodness, success. I win the game. People cheer loudly. They might even buy me a beer if I'm at the bar or something like this. And it's a great feeling when we hit that little tiny red dot right in the middle of that dartboard. However, then the next question that I have is, and how often do you actually hit the little red dot? Well, unless you're an experienced dart player, probably very seldom. So my idea is this. Let's take the game of darts and let's change the rules of the game and use that same skill. So instead of identifying what is success, that little tiny red dot in the middle, instead what we are going to do is we're going to define what is failure and make that the little dot in the middle. All right. So what would failure? Failure would be, perhaps getting divorced. Failure would be perhaps not completing school. Failure would be not owning a car. I have no idea what your definition of failure would be, but the idea is let's clearly define what failure is. We put it in that little red dot, and then we say, all right, so now let's use our skill of not hitting that little red dot and aim for anything but failure in life. Aim for anything but failure in life, because if we hit out where the pointer is out here by the number 18, then that has got to be some form of success. Does that make sense? So do anything but aim for failure. All right, we have another cute picture. Aha, here's one of my favorites. We have two young fellows here who are trying to get this stubborn mule to move. Now, there's a couple of things that happen here, and they're obviously having a lot of trouble. Now, stubborn mules are a lot stronger than these boys are, and stubborn mules do certain things. So if we try to pull this stubborn mule, well, he's stronger than we are, and we're not going to get too far. If I try to push this stubborn mule, well, I might get kicked. If I try to use that carrot, dangle the carrot in front of his nose, well, the proverbial carrot in front of the nose. Okay, so, but I would like you to think about this, and that is how often are you hungry during the day? 1 or 2 hours. And then the rest of the time you are not hungry. So the carrot trick works really, really well if the mule is hungry. But if the mule is not hungry, then it's not going to move. It's not going to budge. So what are these two young fellows to do? And so here's my answer to that. And that is the fellow in the front, untie that rope from the mule, go around to the fellow at the back, tie that rope to the tail, and then stand back and pull. Pull in the opposite direction of which you want to go. Now, what does the mule do? Mule is stronger than us, and the mule pulls in the opposite, or pushes in the opposite direction of what we go. And so being stronger, we're pulling in the opposite direction. The mule is going to point us and drag us into the correct direction. So sometimes it is looking at life from a paradoxical point of view and doing something completely different.
The original Pali word for a Buddhist monk or a renunciant, not sure how to pronounce that, bhikkhu, means fear-seer, one who can tolerate his own terror. When I argue with reality, I lose, but only 100% of the time. According to Byron Katie, take some time to evaluate, reflect, reevaluate who you are. Embrace life and all it has to offer. Embrace yourself and all that you have to offer. Not necessarily what others expect of you or what you expect of others. Am I not a man? I'm a man, so I married. Wife, children, house, everything, the full catastrophe, said Zorba the Greek.
Oh, wait a minute, Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, Calvin and Hobbes is on there. We need to get Calvin in there.
There we go.
Ah,
Embracing life.
yes. If you could wish for anything, what would that be? A big sunny field to be in. A stupid field? You've got that now. Think big, think riches, power. Pretend you could have anything. No, actually, it's hard to argue with someone who looks so happy.
And of course, we have Monty Python's. I'll let you guys look this up on YouTube. This is the ending for Monty Python. Always look on the bright side of life. We'll let you look it up. Be forewarned. All righty, let's go to the next slide. Here we go. As promised, we're going to go for a magical bus ride. This is a metaphor that I think to some degree wraps up the whole presentation, and it speaks to what we're trying to aim you at with this particular presentation. And there are other ways to do this, but this is one way to do this. So here we are, my bus driver, and you are a bus driver. All right, you're a bus driver, you're driving this bus. Now, the fact that you're a bus driver is a metaphor for the fact that you are in charge of your own life. You get to think the way you do, you get to dress, well, to some degree, sometimes you have the uniforms, that you get to dress the way you want, you get to play the games that you want, you get to meet the people you want, etc., etc. You're the bus driver, you are in charge of your own life. And, next slide, bus drivers drive a bus. Now that bus is representative of the contents of your life, all right? And every bus has to drive on a road, and that's the proverbial road through life. More specifically, what that road is these are the choices that you are going to make in life. I choose to turn left here, I choose to speed up here, I choose to stop here, I choose to turn right here, I choose to turn right again, etc., etc. So these are the choices you make in life, but more specifically, how this translates to yourself is these are the choices that you choose in life. I choose this spouse, not those individuals. I choose this career, not those other careers. I choose to have chicken for supper tonight, not beef, etc., etc. So this is the choices that you make in life. And every bus has a destination plate. Our bus here, pictured, is going to Metrotown Station. So every bus has a destination plate. And from where we are broadcasting from, we are right close to the New West Burnaby border. And so if we got on this bus, we would expect this bus to start driving down Kingsway. And we would go past Edmonds, and we would go past, what else would we go? Willingdon, Royal Oak, and all those kinds of places. And eventually we would start seeing Metrotown showing up on our left-hand side. Now imagine this though. Imagine the sign says Metrotown Station, and instead we jump on the bus and it starts heading down into New West. Well, that's kind of odd. Okay, but maybe he's going to take the long way to Metrotown. We stay on the bus and then we see him starting to approach the Petula Bridge. And lo and behold, he is going to go on the Petula Bridge. What are we going to do? Ding, ding, ding. Get me off of here. I don't want to head towards failure. I want to head towards success. So these are my representative of my goals in life, my priorities. What's the most important thing for me to achieve in life? And how am I going to get there? So this destination plate is representative of your goals and priorities in life. And then, of course, last but not least, every bus has its passengers. We have the positive passengers. And these are the people that stand right behind that yellow line and they are chit-chatting away with the bus driver. Now, the bus driver, surprisingly, is a bit of a lonely job at times. And so the bus driver always enjoys the company of the passenger. And so you will notice, though, that the passenger will be standing behind the yellow line, holding on to the bar and talking down and over the bus driver's shoulder. The bus driver does not turn around and start looking at the individual this way. Instead, what do? They stay focused on the road and project their voice off the windscreen and up towards the passenger. So these are the positive passengers. They're nice to have on the bus. Then the next group of passengers you have, these are the people who flash their pass. They sit down, and as you can see a couple of these people doing here, they open up their phones and they start checking email or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be that they're checking on there. All right. These are the people who they sit down and they plug in some music and they're bopping away to their music. These are the people who, as this one lady is looking out the window, they're just watching the scenery go by. These are the people who they have a little nap on the bus. So these are your neutral passengers. They don't really seem to be there, neither here nor there. It's just that they're there and you're carrying them from point A to point B. Now they make up the majority of the bus passengers, and then you don't see them in this particular little shot, but then you have the negative passengers. And the negative passengers are these people who they jump on the bus, they've just been to Starbucks and they're carrying on this $6 venti, latte, whatever it might be. Obviously, I don't drink Starbucks. And they say to the bus driver, I can't afford the fare. And they walk right past the bus driver and they go sit way at the back of the bus. And then they start making all kinds of rude comments. And the bus driver has a choice. The bus driver can listen to the passengers. Hey, bus driver, what kind of a lousy bus driver are you anyways? Don't you know you're supposed to turn left here? And so you turn your bus left here. And all of a sudden now where are you taking your bus? You're taking your bus down some bumpy back alley and you're getting tossed around. And well, not only are you getting tossed around, but so are all the passengers in the back. Now, the positive passengers, bless their souls, are going to be positive. The negative passengers, they were already negative. They're just going to be a little bit more negative. But the question is what happens to all these neutral passengers when you start jostling them around? All of a sudden, you now have a whole bunch of neutral passengers who start turning negative. You now have a big bus full of negative passengers. And so that is one choice that the bus driver can do, is they can listen to the negative passengers. The other alternative is the bus driver can realize, wait a minute, I'm a bus driver. I'm driving this bus and I drive this bus from point A to point B and I have passengers, and some of them are positive, some of them are neutral, and some of them are negative. And I need to stay focused on where am I going? Metrotown. Now, more specifically, who are these passengers? These passengers represent your thoughts and emotions. In particular, the negative passengers are those passengers that are your frustrations, your doubts, your self-criticisms, the parts where you can really get very negative as a result of them. So you can either listen to these negative self-criticisms and doubts, or you can stay focused on your goal and take steps towards your goals in life. All right, Mr. Einstein again. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not people or things. So it's the goal that is really important, and really discovering what are your goals in life, what are your values in life. All righty, so we are coming close to the end of this presentation, and this is where I jump up and down on my soapbox. Earlier, I had mentioned about the lack of resources. So there was a survey that went out just recently, and they found that 78% of Canadians surveyed report that the cost of psychological services is a barrier to treatment. All right, and 88% of people surveyed would like to see publicly funded psychological services, and 76% would like to see increased extended health benefits. Now, that would be really, really great to be able to do that. And so the thing that we as an organization are doing is we are lobbying the government to increase the accessibility to psychologists. We are lobbying the companies to increase extended health benefits, but we could use your help. So we're going to say, please write a letter to your government official. Here you got a few pictures down here at the bottom, Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Horgan, and who's our Vancouver mayor? I can't remember his name. Anyways, sorry?
That guy.
That guy, all right, yes. So lobby your government, lobby your corporations, your unions, and your HR departments. Ask them for more mental health dollars. Help us out. Take the fight to the government and to the corporations to get you better care. All right. Okay, so once again, want to remind you that we've got all kinds of free talks during Psychology Month, February. Go to the Eventbrite page or go to the psychologist.bc.ca page, and you'll find a link to all the other free cool talks. Like I mentioned, there's a bunch of neat ones. And also you'll find a link if you want for referrals to a psychologist. All righty.